This video is brought to you by my new book, Mouth of Winter, a direct follow-up to my previous novel, Dull Bloods. If you're looking for something new to read or want to see what happens to Jon Kettle next, then feel free to check it out. Links are in the description. To say Sonic had a rocky start when it came to his 3D outings would be like saying Jeffrey Epstein was a shifty fellow. What was supposed to be his first 3D game on the Sega Saturn, Sonic X-treme, was cancelled, and it wasn't until the early 2000s that Sonic finally got his first 3D experience with Adventure. With Sonic running around in my head lately, I've been feeling curious about his early 3D games. How well have they aged? Are the things I've seen over the years on YouTube about them true? Or are they actually sweet and I've been lied to or been misremembering? So I decided to jump in and see for myself. After trying them out, I have to admit the experience has been very mixed. How so, I hear you ask? Well, let me tell you. Starting with a game I didn't get around to playing until late high school and hated half of it. Sonic's first 3D game, Sonic Adventure.
Look at all those Eggman robots!
Already?
Right off the bat, Adventure's most striking feature is its presence of not one, not two, not three, but 6 playable characters, each with their own unique gameplay. While a good idea on paper, this does reek of throwing shit against the wall and seeing what sticks, but what's good is good. Sonic and Tails are the most fun to play, with Sonic having these big open levels packed with hidden routes that encourage experimentation and replaying them. Meanwhile, Tails are linear races where you're trying to beat another character to the end goal. Then there's this robot character, E100 Gamma. He's all about rapid-fire shooting and feels like you're playing a Japan-only arcade game. Meanwhile, Knuckles aiming big to cats can be rather tedious and just too slow for a Sonic game, and can even be outright boring to play. Knuckles is about finding the shards of the Master Emerald with a hot or cold radar that can be hard to read. Amy is all about trying to stealth around a stalker robot who's a pain in the ass. And then there's Big. Who thought Sonic needed fishing gameplay? What's more, Sonic and the other characters can be unwieldy and hard to control at times, so it can be easy to fall into a cheap death at no fault of your own, or make playing as Knuckles and Amy more frustrating. The game also features open-ended hub areas that you're free to explore. Won't lie, these do feel like padding, since it can be hard to figure out where to go or what exactly to do in order to trigger the next level at times. But they are packed with enough small touches, hidden areas, and interactive objects that it can be fun to explore them. It's honestly a shame these were abandoned after this game and weren't iterated on. We may have gotten an open world game well before Frontiers otherwise. Adventure also deserves praise for its storytelling. While the presentation is clunky and the English voice acting bad, it was very ambitious for the time. A shonen anime-inspired story of ancient forces being awakened to threaten the world, and the adventure to stop them. I wouldn't say it's as good as the stories in later games, and it's certainly no Last of Us, but it is an enjoyable piece of early 2000s cheese, and I have to admit it, I like it more than I did back in high school. And this narrative focus certainly helps set it apart from Mario 64, which I can also more or less say about the sequel. Those who watched my Sonic Frontiers wishlist video will know that this was the first 3D Sonic game I played as a kid. Coming back to revisit it as an adult, I can't deny that like the first adventure, it hasn't aged well as a whole, but what was good then is still good now, be it skating through the streets of not San Francisco to get away from the gun truck while City Escape is playing, or speeding through Radical Highway. You'll notice those are both examples of Sonic and Shadow levels. There's a good reason for that. They're the characters that are the most fun to play. Adventure 2 took a streamlined approach. It cut the playstyles in half and refined the 3 that worked the best: Sonic, Knuckles, and Gamma. Sonic, Shadow as well, isn't as unwieldy as he was in the first adventure, and feels like you're controlling greased butter on lightning as you zip through the levels. The same can't be said about the other characters. There is fun with them, but they're just not as fun to play as Sonic or Shadow. Knuckles and Rouge's gameplay is practically the same from the first adventures. Levels that are hot and cold treasure hunts with the same radar that can be confusing to read, even with a mod meant to make it better. Tails and Eggman though lack the speed Gamma had, so instead of having that fast arcadey action, playing as them feels like you're playing a different, slower game, where it's fun at first, but once you play a second level as them, you realize they just lack meat. It's not as jarring as playing as Big, but their levels are the weakest. Pro Jared was right in his review of Adventure 2. Everyone kept grinding the Sonic and Shadow levels for the Chao Garden, and that painted how we all remembered this game. The presentation is still clunky, but the story is even more ambitious than in Adventure 1, with it touching on themes like grief, trauma, nihilism, Greek tragedy, and showing events from the point of view of the villains. It's still early 2000s cheese, but it's a more refined cheese, the kind that you give at a dinner party that isn't afraid to challenge its target audience with shades of grey. It's just a shame the voice acting is even worse than before. In fact, I'd go so far as to say it borders on being so bad it's good, when it isn't being so bad it's bad, adding to the game's cheesy aroma, something the next game lacked. Now, Sonic Heroes was my second 3D Sonic game. I remember seeing it in the Henna Street video shop for GameCube, and I got excited, much to my little sister's frustration. However, they were a video shop notorious for not taking good care of their games, so playing it for this video marks the first time I've ever played beyond the second level without the game crashing. I have to admit, it was great to see, with the benefit of hindsight, how this game built on the Sonic gameplay for a uniquely experimental experience. What sets Heroes apart is the formation mechanic. We're not playing as one character, but a team of 3, where we cycle through who the leader is, how the others are positioned, and how the team interacts with the level.
Must be eliminated. Fire! Kill!
Each of the 3 formations have their own strengths and weaknesses. Speed lets the team move at the fastest pace, but is the hardest to collect rings with. Strength makes it easier to collect rings and take out the tougher enemies, but can bring the pace to a halt. Flight is the slowest, but can reach areas the others can't, and can even save the player from falling to their death. Combine this with a great speedy flow, and you have an experience where it takes genuine skill to cycle through the formations at the right time, and doing so feels like a genuine accomplishment in the moment. But it is brought down by more than a few bugbears. This game needed a delay or two for polish, that is very clear, since there are times where the controls just won't respond to context or player input, and this can lead to some frustratingly cheap deaths, which leads to a bigger problem. The game has a leveling system. You level up the 3 characters as you play so they can efficiently deal with enemies. Problem is, when you die, the levels get reset to 0. So when the controls don't do their job, you can end up in a situation where you're expected to blitz through tough enemies in 15 seconds, and instead spend 60 chipping down their bloated health bars. This is especially frustrating when playing as the Chaotix, everyone's favourite detectives. Their levels have objectives you have to complete instead of reaching the goal. This means they have the worst flow because depending on the level objective, you regularly have to stop and make sure you either found the thing, destroyed all the things, or collected enough rings, which will get dull, especially when you're meant to kill every enemy and you miss one and have to re-loop through the whole level to find it. However, it should be said that this game's graphics have aged rather well, thanks in part to its vibrant and eclectic art direction that ensures every level has a distinct look. It's just a shame that the levels will get dull from overexposure. This is because each team goes through the same levels and the same boss fights. What changes between the teams is the length. This also reflects the difficulty settings. Team Sonic's end goal is roughly 2/3 through the level, Dark's is at the very end, Bro's halfway through, and with the Chaotix it will vary from level to level. So you will get very familiar with the level layouts and boss fights since you need to beat all 4 teams' campaigns in order to access the true final levels. But at least you'll have some nice colourful visuals to look at, which isn't something I can say about the game that came out after Heroes.
Looks like I'm supposed to hit it as hard as I can.
I'll take the
Here we
lead!
go! Anytime you're ready.
If Heroes was an attempt at experimenting with the gameplay, then Shadow the Hedgehog was an attempt at experimenting with something that was big in the 90s and the 2000s, edge. This game is notorious for doing everything to be dark, cool, and edgy, while also doing everything to avoid getting a restrictive classification. It even added gunplay. Unlike Heroes, I never played it, but I did hear about the game's issues. So, Color Me tickled pink when I found out about a modded version called Reloaded that tried to address the game's problems, which was the version I played for this video. What stuck out to me the most was the game's branching story mechanic. How it works is each level typically has 3 objectives to choose from: good, evil, and neutral. Which one you do determines what level you move on to next, how the story plays out, and what ending you get, with choices also locking the player out of certain levels on the current playthrough. On paper, this is a great idea. It encourages replayability, and what objective you choose can drastically change how a level plays out. In practice, though, it means the story lacks cohesion and just jumps from place to place without much explanation. This stuck out to me the most in the Mystic Castle level. Not only is Shadow just randomly teleported in, but I was doing an evil playthrough, so that means I helped out Eggman by activating his base's defenses. This had a knock-on effect where the boss fight against him that followed made no sense. Meanwhile, the good objective was to help Amy find her friend Cream. I ignored her, so it made even less sense that she would help me in the boss fight. I won't lie, despite being poorly handled, I do like the game's branching story in concept, and I'd like to see it return in a more refined game, but here, it took what should have been fun, silly, trashy edginess, and made it incomprehensible. Jak and Daxter 2 is an example of what Shadow's story tried to do, but done right.
You! Lights up! Lights up!
Watch out for the ghosts that come out from underneath that net, too!
The Reloaded mod brings a number of quality of life improvements to Shadow that are commendable, from making the controls more responsive to cutting down on the tedium, like beating the game 3 times to access the true ending instead of requiring all 9 non-canon endings first, and restoring cut content. So considering what I heard about Shadow, this mod is the definitive version of the game, but even then, that's not saying much. Despite addressing a number of issues, just as many aren't addressed. Like the enemy AI. It doesn't matter if you're doing the good objective or the evil one. Both groups of enemies will attack you no matter what you do. Moving Shadow up a slope makes him slower than a snail, and vehicle handling is laughably abysmal. The gunplay is dull, but when the core speed gameplay is allowed to do its thing, the gunplay can slot in naturally and be part of something genuinely fun. The levels can be confusing mazes that just drag on. The worst example of this is the one where the good objective is to disarm 20 small bombs to save the city, but the evil objective is to detonate 5 big bombs to destroy it. Ignoring how tedious it is to find every bomb, this just makes no sense.
What are you doing, you traitor?
Conversely, I did the evil objective for a level set on the Ark. This required me to ride this bat monster and destroy the space station's defenses. And guess what? It was fun! It felt like I was playing Panzer Dragoon of all things. That sums up this game to a T. Even when modded to be better, Shadow the Hedgehog is a painfully mixed game, where its moments of brilliance just drive home harder than in any early 3D Sonic game how bad its pitfalls can be. If there's any game in the series that deserved a delay for more polish, it was this one, which is something I can't say about the last game on my list.
Destroying the defense units.
Like Shadow, the first time I played the main version of Sonic Colors was for this video with the remastered Ultimate version on Steam. True to its name, Colors is very colourful. What was made for the limited hardware of the Nintendo Wii, its graphics have actually held up remarkably well over the years. Thanks to its vibrant and varied art direction, the game looks great running at 1080p. The only shortcomings in the art direction are the level select screens, which do look rather basic, but that's a forgivable nitpick. It also comes with 3 versions of the soundtrack you can have running as you play, and each is worth listening to. It's just a shame Sega hired Blind Squirrel Games to handle the remaster, because those guys did a piss poor job. Yes, the game does look good, but when you compare it to the original release, you can see how they just butchered this game. Dulled colors, needless bloom effects, piss poor cutscene rescaling, de novo, and dear god, the boost blur effect. At least the last one can be turned off in the options menu, but the rest? Thank God in heaven the fans have made mods to fix their chop job. It's no wonder that when it came time to remaster Generations, Sega had Sonic Team do it internally, rather than let these guys handle it. The gameplay is more of the boost gameplay from Unleashed, and it has been polished to a mirror shine. This game marked the debut of the Wisps, and they slotted in perfectly. The abilities they give Sonic not only add new challenges, but replayability, with some levels having secrets and routes that can only be reached once a certain Wisp is unlocked. Granted, not every Wisp is created equal, and what they add to the experience does vary in fun. The Laser Wisp, for instance, adds blinding speed and ricocheting risk, while the Drill Wisp brings underground exploration. Meanwhile, the Block Wisp introduces plotting, platforming challenges that slow Sonic to a crawl. Then there's the story. The most charitable way to describe it is back to basics. It's just Sonic, Tails, and Eggman, with Orbot and Cubot acting as the supporting cast. Won't lie, I would have preferred something like Unleashed's story. The story in Unleashed was a solid middle ground between the seriousness of prior games and the cartooniness of the early games. Colors though leans more into the cartoony, and while it has its moments, it's nothing special. It's all the more disappointing when you look at the DS version, which I played back in high school. Its story is actually fleshed out, with Sonic's larger ensemble playing supporting roles, doing things, and interacting with him as he journeys across Eggman's amusement park. The Chaotix, for instance. They're there because they were hired for a case. Meanwhile, Shadow and Rouge are there to see if Eggman is on the up and up on behalf of Gun, and Amy is having fun with Cream and down to try and get some sugar from Sonic. It's honestly a shame there wasn't story parity between the two versions, or that Sonic Team didn't try to do anything creative, narratively speaking. Here's an idea I had in my head when I played the DS version. The crux of the story is Eggman claiming to be reformed and building this amusement park to atone for his sins. But of course, it's a front and he's actually using the enslaved Wisps to power a secret super weapon. But what if he was reformed? What if the Mother Wisp was the real villain all along, and she was manipulating Sonic, and Eggman was unaware the Wisps themselves were enslaved by her, instead of just little monsters that needed to be contained? Then when we defeat the alien Mother and liberate the Wisps, we have to destroy the amusement park in the process. We then get a scene where Sonic tries to apologize to Eggman, only for him to just go off his head, chew us out, and go back to being a villain out of spite. What I came up with sounds a lot more interesting than the plot we got. When it's all said and done, I'm glad I tried these games out. Each of them is unique and an experience unto themselves, warts and all. And to any longtime Sonic fans watching this, what are your thoughts? Do you agree with me, or do you think I'm a retarded monkey spleen? Or was I wrong about something? Please let me know in the comments, and thanks for watching. Alright, cool, thanks for checking out this video, I really do appreciate it, and if you guys really liked it, please hit the like and subscribe buttons, and don't forget to check out Mouth of Winter. Now, for the next gaming video, I've got two ideas, don't know what order I'm going to do them in, but this is what they are. A horror double feature looking at Resident Evil Requiem and Crisol Theatre of Idols. I grabbed both those for my birthday, and I gotta admit, they're both fantastic. The other? Another Sonic showcase, but this time, Sonic fan games. I've taken a look at some of them already, and I gotta admit, I was actually amazed by them. No joke, the Sonic fandom is actually producing fan games that in some cases are superior to the official stuff. Like, that is astounding. And also, I finally got my hands on a new card reader, so sooner or later, expect my review of Bambi the Reckoning to finally be out. Got all that more coming up, so please stick around.